Hello and welcome to Skeindeer Knits. My name is Ellie and I am a Norwegian living and knitting in London. And you can find me on Instagram as Skeindeer and as the designer Skeindeer Knits on Ravelry, as well as my Ravelry group also called Skeindeer Knits, which is the best place to take part in any knit-alongs or chatter that we have about Norwegian knitting and yarn and colour work and whatnot. And it is the best place to get in touch. So yeah, I've been doing a bit of spring cleaning in that group lately, in case you haven't noticed. I think it looks very nice and kind of clear and orderly, and like there is like a thread for each pattern, so if you need support, the best place to be. Now, welcome to this podcast. If you are a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming back, and if you are a new viewer, hello. This is a series of videos that I do, one each week, where I just talk about knitting. It's a kind of a personal knitting adventure that I am sharing with you. It's not supposed to be anything but me knitting with you. Another thing that I do on this podcast, in case you don't already know, is run knit-alongs. Now, knit-alongs are basically knitting the same pattern or concept or category, depending on the rule of each individual KAL and KAL hosts, together. It's a way of socializing knitting if those of us who knit live far apart from one another. And I am quite addicted to hosting knit-alongs. I've hosted a number of knit-alongs in my year and a half as a podcaster, a video podcaster to be clear. And I am now currently hosting the year-long knit-along, where we aim to knit 6 pairs of Colorwork mittens throughout 2018. And guys, I just want to say how much I'm enjoying this knit along in my group, to see all the mittens that are coming up, and I just like giggle with excitement every time I see that someone has chosen to knit my mittens, because I design mitten patterns and it just gets me very excited to see them there, that you chose them of all the Colorwork mittens out there. Oh, thank you so much, and thank you so much for receiving my Finullgarn mitts so well the other week that I launched my latest pattern. I'm quite blown away, so thank you so much. And yes, it is totally eligible for this knit along. There's a lot of colour work going on there, so even though they are just mitts, that the colour work goes all the way down here, so you should be fine there. I'm also running the Skeindeer sock along, which I decided to run in association with my launch of my very first sock collection, Sokkilester, which I didn't actually explain to you what that means. It's kind of hard to translate, but essentially, if you are walking about in just your socks and not your shoes, someone says you are on your Sokkilester. It's a little bit of a weird word, because it basically just means socks. Socks, Lester already means socks. But yeah, that's essentially what it means. If you're on your socks, you are on your Sokkilester. And I thought that was a really nice name, and it was suggested to me from one of my Instagram followers, so thank you so much. So yeah, the rule for taking part in that knit along is essentially just to knit any of my sock patterns. It doesn't have to be the sock patterns in the latest collection. You can knit one of my kind of single sock releases. You don't have to get a whole publication to take part in the knit along, of course. Apologies if any of you can hear any banging, because this is the time I chose to record my episode. That is also the time that my neighbours decide to be noisy. I really don't think you can hear it, but there's like this constant like knocking, and yeah, there's always something to throw me off a bit when I record. It doesn't take much, really. But yeah, I was talking about knit-alongs. I am hosting a third knit-along as well. It is the Marius KAL, because I launched my very first sweater pattern. Apparently there's like a thing when I launch a pattern, I need to have a KAL for it. I'm trying not to do that, because that's like, I feel like it's a bit like, you know, shouting wolf so often that people don't come when there's a real wolf, that kind of scenario. So I'm not going to do that, but it's my first sweater, and so many people have been so eager to knit it, and I think yolks are definitely in the wind. So yeah, that's a knit along that's going on, and what you need to do there to take part is to knit that specific pattern. So yeah, but I did also wrap up a knit along, which was not for any of my patterns. It was for the Marius pattern, which is a traditional-ish Norwegian colorwork pattern. It can be a yoke, it can be sewn in sleeves. You could also modify it to be another shape that you like, but that knit along has now wrapped up. I say it was sort of traditional, it's because the pattern was actually released in the 50s, but it is based upon traditional Norwegian garments. And yeah, I am ready to announce winners. I had the most generous gift price, what have you, donation this week, and it reached me just in time. And yeah, this amazingly generous lady from Norway has donated 2 Marius bags. This is the largest of the 2 bags, and that, in addition to yarn from Ovis, etc., will be given to Powerofwool. So congratulations, and do get in touch with me on Ravelry with your address and this will be sent to you. I want to talk a bit about these prices because they're amazing. I have this bag myself as well, and it's supposed to be a bag for toiletries, but I reckon it's a pretty good project bag. It's a perfect size. I really like it. And yes, this is the legit Marius pattern, as you can see. It says Marius was what I was going to say. That is Marius himself. And Ovis, etc. yarn. It kind of pains me to give this away, I'm not gonna lie. I might just like run over to Saskia and cry and be like, oh, what's up? Because this is amazing. This is amazing yarn. It is 100% Shetland wool, 2 times 50 grams of 240 meters each of non-superwash yarn from wool sheep grown in Holland. And you can definitely hear that banging, can't you? This is loud now. Anyway, there we have it. I think this is I'm very happy with this price. It feels really good if you have a really good price, you know. So Powerofwool, you get this bag and that yarn. Do get in touch with me on private messages on Ravelry. The next winner is a French name. It's like LaMaillePerdue. Put that below. I have no way of pronouncing anything French. It's not like for lack of trying, because I did sign up to French in school. It's just that the teacher never gave me a textbook, and so after half a year I just gave up. It's like, if I'm not going to get a textbook, I'm just gonna do just more English, and I did more English and it's kind of paid off. So yeah, you get this smaller Marius bag, which I think is adorable. I actually have one of these as well, which I use for my makeup, and I have to say this one looks a lot lovelier than mine, because mine is a bit stained with makeup. I think I need to give it a good wash. If there are any washing instructions on this, I might just have a peek on the label before I give it to you. And inside there's 2 skeins of Finull, which was donated to me from Amy Florence, because these are the 2 skeins she had left from her sweater. So if you ever loved that burgundy, these are the 2 skeins that she did not use for her sweater. And oh, this is one of my favorite colorways of Finull. In case you don't know, Finull, which has now been renamed Finull PT2, which is still the same yarn, there's no difference really. It's one of my favorite Norwegian yarns. It's like the staple of Norwegian yarn. It's like the first one that I can think of if someone says Norwegian yarn. And you get 2 skeins with this Marius pack. So person, get in touch with me on Ravelry private messages with your address and this will be sent to you. And yeah, I'm a bit of a mad woman for like handing out so many prices, because next knit along I'm gonna be sitting here and be like, I don't have any prices anymore. That's the story of my life really, but there were just so many amazing entries for this knit along. It kind of just pains me to not be able to select all of them, so I'm gonna just try to do as many as I can. And right now I have capacity to do 3 individuals, so the 3rd individual is Susan, more specifically Celadonsusan, I think it's pronounced. And I'm very glad that she was drawn as the winner by random.org, because I know how excited Susan has been about her Marius, and it just seems so worthy. So Susan, what you get is Knit Nordic, reading mirrored on the thing, hard, difficult. Do not recommend, but I do recommend this book. It's called Knit Nordic. It's by Elina Oftedal, and it's not just a bunch of Marius patterns in here. Oh no, there is Voss, there is Fana, there is Setestar. It's all those like really lovely nostalgic Norwegian patterns in one book with like stuff and things and accessories. I don't think there are that many garments, but you can get pot holders and hats, and yeah. I have knitted a couple of things from this book myself because my aunt has this book, so I got to borrow it a little bit. And I've done a cushion, I've done a hat, maybe that's it. But yeah, lots of lovely, lovely patterns. Congratulations. And you also get a pile of sock yarns, because I want to give away yarn in every opportunity I can. So you get all of these lovely sock yarns, they're 50 grams each, roughly 200 meters, 210, excuse me. So there we are. They are called LaMaillePerdue woolly socks. It's really nice. I have actually knitted with this in grey and it's really truly lovely sock yarn. So congratulations, you get 6 balls of those and the book. So Susan, do get in touch and send me your address. I know I have it somewhere because you did buy something off my Etsy shop ages ago, but just in case, just do that because we don't want to take any risks. You may have moved, what do I know? So yes, do get in touch. So that was all the admin work out of the way. I do tend to start my episodes with that kind of thing, so you know where things are at, and that's where things are at. Now we are ready for finished objects, and I have 2 finished objects for you this week. And the first I want to show you is a garment, and it's not the garment that you may think. I have done the carpet sweater in a week. I don't know if you've heard of this. This is the carpet sweater designed by the amazing, talented and superwoman Kate Davies, who I greatly admire. And they have this like hashtag called Bang Out a Carpet, which is the reason why there were so many carpets at Edinburgh Yarn Festival, because it's so fast to make. It's made in chunky yarn. The gauge is 14 stitches per 10 centimeters. I think the recommended needle size was 6.5, which is also how I got gauge. And yeah, it's cropped as well, which does not hurt things. Now this sweater screams for a need of blocking, so mind you, it doesn't look as good as it will do once I have given it a good soak and dry, which is how I block my sweater. I don't really do much beyond that. I may give it a good steam with the iron, but I can't really iron without my mum. So yeah, I'm gonna do that once things get a bit sunnier out here, which doesn't seem to be anytime soon, because it's spring and it's London and it's rainy and grey, but means I can enjoy some lovely natural light. But yeah, I'm not gonna do any blocking or soaking or drying of this thing until I know I have the sun to aid me, because this is knit in chunky yarn and it will take a while for it to dry. And let me talk a bit about the yarn. I have spoiled myself. I've used Garthenor number 5, their chunky Jacob yarn. It's called, the colorway is called Pewter, but it's essentially a natural shade of Jacob, although Jacob comes with several different colors depending on where on their coat, I think. And yeah, this is the Pewter colorway, and oh, it's so heavy. It weighs nearly 800 grams because Garthenor's chunky yarn isn't that generous on the meterage, and I had really underestimated that, because when I ordered this yarn from Brit Yarn when it was closing down and had a lot of discounts and stuff on offer, I thought, oh wow, that's a really cheap sweater quantity of really nice yarn, like organic British local yarn. And no, I had been reading the meterage of 100 gram skeins, but what these skeins were 50 grams. So halfway through the sweater I had knitted up all the yarn, because I hadn't read things properly, and it just hadn't occurred to me that I was holding up 50 gram skeins going, 98 meters. It should be obvious. You don't get chunky yarn that has 98 meters per 50 grams. It has to be 100 grams if you're gonna get to that. So it was a bit dumb. Bit of a brain fart. And so I ordered from Garthenor, and the day after it was in the mail, which was incredible. So I had ordered initially 8 50 gram skeins, but what Garthenor sent me was 400 gram skeins. I did try to ask them if the skeins they sold were 50 grams or 100 grams, because there's like, their website is going for something very minimalist, but unfortunately it's at the expense of important information. So it actually doesn't say how much meters or grams or anything, so you kind of just have to hope for the best. And luckily the skeins were 100 grams, and so I have a finished carpet. And I'm going to show you it once more, and you can see why I think this needs blocking. The bottom hem is rolling up, but I think that will block out. That's happened in a lot of my cases where I've knit a fairly short rib. It rolls up and then you give it a good soak and it just doesn't do that anymore. So no need to panic if that happens to you. Sometimes you really do need to reknit it in a small needle size or for longer, but generally a good soak and dry will do the trick, and maybe steaming it down a bit as well. And same with the decreases here from the raglan. It's instead of being a usual raglan where you have 8 decreases on every other round, you have now here 4 decreases but every round. So that's kind of why you get it looking a bit funny, but that will definitely even out with a good soak and dry. So I'm not too worried about that, and it looks really, really cool. I have tried this on, it fits really nicely. I look very warm and cozy, but warm is the key word for why I am not wearing it today, because this is chunky weight Jacob yarn. It's not superwash, it's warm. And the weather is warming up here in the UK, so I'm probably not going to get any joy out of wearing this sweater until very late in the year. Unless, you know, the weather surprises us and we get snow in May again. Didn't that happen last year? I feel like something weird like that happened. Maybe that's just my brain and my faulty memory, but yeah, I want to give you a good full view. Oh, I thought this sweater was absolutely ridiculous when I was knitting it. In the best of sense, like, I love everything Kate Davis does and I had no doubts there. But when I just had the body on the needles, all I have is this really short, very wide piece. And I'm like, how is this gonna, how is this gonna be a thing that a human can wear? But actually, now that I have the whole piece, it totally, you know, it all comes together, literally. And oh, I'm so proud. I did the sweater in a week, and you can do it too, totally. Chunky yarn, you guys. Yeah, I don't really have that many chunky yarn sweaters. I do have 2 owl sweaters, also by Kate Davies. I think that's it. So it's really a good thing to have. And I do plan on casting on another chunky weight sweater because I got some Knit Picks yarn from Kristin when I was in New York. That's Kristin of Yarngasm. And I've also been given the Avalanche pattern by Heidi Kiermaier. So I think we're gonna see that next, because I would love to have another quick and chunky, thick, lovely sweater. But no promises there, but I like to dream, you know. You can never have too many works in progress, really. And yeah, gonna be holding up this one more time. I feel like just, I mean, showing you both sides, but they really do look a lot alike, although not quite, because I did look at some photos of the Carbeth, and I can see that it sort of dips a bit in the back, because, well, the way this sweater is made, it's pretty much identical front and back. And I didn't want that, so I have snuck in some short row shaping here. So if I fold up this, you can actually see it where it's sort of, it looks like it's pulling in. It's not really the case, but there are some extra rows between my fingers here where I'm pointing. So there's a bit more going on here than in the front. So I'm hoping that when it wants to kind of pull down, I still get a high neck in the back, and it still kind of covers the lower bits of my neck, if that makes sense. The other kind of modification I did was when I had decreased up to here. Pattern said I should have 2 stitches between the stitch markers, and I had 3 on both sides. As far as I can tell, I've not done anything wrong, because I had the correct stitch count here, but there were either 1 stitch too many on each side or 1 stitch lacking, and I should have done another decrease run first. No idea if there's a fault in the pattern or with me, but it's pretty easy to remedy. I just decided to do a kind of decrease 2 stitches at once, so that this one and that one and the one in the middle all just came together. And that meant I only had to decrease another 2 extra stitches on the final round before the rib, where you're just decreasing randomly a bit around, randomly, I don't know. So it all is pretty easy to work around if you end up having that happen as well. No big deal. And yeah, it's just lovely, and it's simple and easy and quick, and I would definitely recommend if you want a quick, big, warm, heavy sweater. Although if you are a bit hesitant about the heavy part of it, honestly, you don't have to make it as big as I did. This is way, way, way bigger than my measurements, because that's exactly what I wanted and what the pattern recommends. But you can also, you know, again, hold super soft. I don't know how many times you'd have to hold that, how many strands you'd have to hold together. I'm gonna guess maybe 4, but still, I should be more light than this, though probably also more annoying holding 4 strands together. Oh God. Anyway, I think we need to wrap this up. I just feel like prolonging the time I'm talking about the sweater, because this is probably the only time I get to talk about it, because all I had last episode was a cuff. That's all I had made, and it doesn't get much screen time when it gets finished in a week. So yeah, the car breath, you guys, by the amazing Kate Davies, who's going to be releasing a West Highland Way booklet soon. That's her latest pattern collection, and she also has an autobiography coming out, which I am very excited about. And just, yeah, all the Kate Davies things. And I will probably, definitely, maybe, I hope so, make a sort of grand review of all her pattern publications, because I have all of the ones she has released so far, and if I get the West Highland Way, I can sort of contrast and compare them to you and let you know my opinions about each and every one of them and which one to get, depending on what you're looking for. And yeah, car breath's done. All I have left is about 40 grams, so meterage was pretty spot on. I was the one who was messing about. Pattern is good. And yeah, got a little scrap of Jacob here. Not sure what to do with that, but there we are, car breath. Now, I do have another finished object, and I'm sure you can guess what that is, because it is indeed another garment. It is the fern and feather, which I am wearing. You knew it was coming. And guys, I love this sweater. Now, I am like my own worst critic. I always have some hang-ups about what I have made myself. There's always something that isn't quite right, because I can't help myself from doing something that I'm in the end a bit like, I wish I would have done that. I wish I would have done this. This thing, none of that. I love this sweater. I love everything about it. There's nothing that bothers me. It's perfect. Jennifer Stangars, so far one of my like top of the list yoke designers who I trust to make an amazing fit, easy to follow instructions, very clear, broad range of sizes, everything you need to know. And oh, it's so good. One thing that has been a very pleasant, pleasurable, or good experience, new piece of wisdom for me with this pattern is the short rows. Do you see any short rows? I don't see any short rows, but the neckline is still higher than the front. There's nothing here that bothers me. Front dips, the back is high. How? When you can't see it, because they've been worked below the color work. So just above the sleeve and body divide there was short rows worked, and just below the sleeve and body divide, so on both sides there were short rows worked, and it makes it dip a bit in the back, and it makes it come up a bit in the back up here. So lower back is lower, upper back is higher. And I've had like discussions about this with sewing friends of mine who are like, that's not going to work, that's not going to be right, that's not going to be good. And I'm like being doubting it, and I'm like, but I don't know. I'm going to try it, and it really works. And I do think this is to do with knitting fabrics just being different than your average other fabric. It just allows for this kind of flexibility. There is, you know, you hear people talk about this a lot. If you seam, you get structure, and actually this is an unseamed garment. It's all knit in one piece, seamless, unseamed. It's called seamless, I think. And actually that lack of structure is probably what is aiding this, what makes this work, and it's an advantage. I think it's unfair to look at knitting as though it were sewing and put it up to those expectations and say, well, if you sew a garment you get those seams, and then that's a stronger structure. I'm like, but knitting isn't supposed to be sewing, it's supposed to be knitting. I'm not talking about the actual seaming as an act. If you like seaming, seam away. But I'm thinking in terms of it just being a different thing, and it has its own pros and cons. And yeah, it doesn't have that seamed structure, but that does give the advantage of being able to put a short row down here that makes it higher up here, and it allows for this kind of design feature where I don't have to have this big extra chunk of charcoal up here that makes it different from the front, but it still fits really nice. So I get that neckline shape, and I could go on and on about this. You know, actually I did try this out myself with my Miss Rachel cardigan, which is hanging here by Kate Davies. and I had to actually frog it because I had accidentally added too much fabric between here, and so I never got to try it out in the end, even though I had initially done the thing. And hindsight tells me maybe I should have just made sure that there wasn't too much fabric under here. But actually for this sweater I am deliberately having a lot of fabric here. I could of course have just started the shorter shaping when I was here and it would have gone further up my arm, but this is supposed to be a big and cozy sweater and it's perfect. And yeah, I am definitely hoping to use this shorter shaping that is near the sleeve and body divide more. I tried it once and it didn't work because of other issues, not because of that being an issue, and now that I have this sweater I can see how well it works and how it's a nice way to work around issues with having it up here, though I think that's totally a valid and good way of doing it as well. But it can disrupt the design, the feature, the way you want the knit to look like, so that's the thing. Now you may see a glaringly obvious modification here. I have modified very little with the sweater. I may be a bit off with row gauge because I did notice that I think I had reached some points in knitting the sleeves where they actually ended up being a bit longer, and I love that, I really do. And same thing with the body. I didn't think I got to all the increases at the hip before I was actually at the recommended length, and for once I went for the recommended length. So all of that according to pattern. The waist fitting is there, and it's lovely having a loose but waist fitted sweater. This is so flattering even though it's actually oversized. Could go on and on, but yes, I was talking about the one obvious modification, just going on tangent as ever. The neckline is modified. I had these on scrap yarn, a provisional cast on, so I undid the first row of the provisional cast on because that tends to be a little bit off gauge for me, and then I decreased, I'm gonna guess it was around to 70 stitches or so. It was basically for a couple of sizes lower than the one I knitted for, because I figured that would be a nice sort of, yeah, circumference for getting my head through. And so after I had decreased evenly in the round, I did about 4 rows of knit 1, purl 1, and then I did the elastic bind off. So I knit 1, purl 1, knit those two together through the back loop, and that is my favorite bind off method of all. I think it's really good, and it essentially adds up to being 5 rows because you do knit 1, purl 1 before you actually knit them together, so it sort of adds up to being 5, which is a bit more of a sensible number. That made no sense, but yeah, I could go on and on about the sweater, and I'm probably going to for a little bit more because it is amazing and it's so soft and warm and light. And you know why? Because of Holst Super Soft. And as you may well know, that is a light fingering weight yarn, and this is a worsted weight sweater. However, if you hold Holst Super Soft double, you get what I would say is about DK to worsted weight. I don't quite believe in yarn weights, and I do believe that all yarn weights overlap to some extent. I'm a bit like, oh, but worsted and DK is kind of the same. Oh, but DK and sport is kind of the same. Sport and finger is kind of, you know what I mean? So it's flexible, is what I'm trying to say. You could hold it double and say it's a DK. You could hold it double and say it's a sport. No, worsted. I don't know if holding it double would make it sport. Maybe it would. It's a very flexible yarn, this. You could use it across a lot of... I would hold it single for sport. Yeah. And yeah, so very, very happy with this. It feels so good. This yarn is so soft, and yes, it is still what we call rustic, and I'm totally happy having it next to skin, on my chest, on my arms, all the places. It's lovely, truly. Holst Super Soft, or anything in the super soft category, be it Holst, Garnet Sog, JC Rennie, yeah, just it's amazing, and I would definitely recommend it. And oh my god, it's so rewarding when you give it a wash. I was knitting it, and every time I knit with Holst, I kind of doubt myself. I'm like, is it really that good? It looks a bit funny. I know it will be nicer when I wash it, but still, I don't know. Every time I'm being proven wrong, and every time I wash up Holst, it's like all the rewards of having finished a garment at once thrown at me, and I want to do it again. that's, I think, the experience most people knitting with Holst Super Soft have. As soon as they've gone through that wash and dry process, you just want to knit it again. You want to knit the next project in Holst, and the next and the next and the next. And I'm definitely having that experience as well. And guys, did you see that? I think Holst posted something on Instagram where I think Clara Park has written about the yarn, and now they're like, we are having really high demand right now. And I'm like, you go, guys. So definitely very happy with my choice of yarn, and I might just do all my worsted weight garments in Holst held double now. As much as I dislike holding yarn double, because I end up just knitting one of the plies at one of the strands at some point, and that can look a bit off. But the good thing is when you knit it, and because of the spinning oil that's on, it's very see-through, so you just hold it up against some light and you will see where you actually missed one of the 2 strands, and you can just drop that stitch, get a crochet hook out and hook it back up again. Really easy on stockinette. I'm sure there are lots of tutorials out there, so there's a way around it. It's just a little bit tedious, and it looks a bit wonky after you've done it, but it will block out. So I am now going to talk about washing this thing, because this has been a bit of a discussion on Instagram. I've talked to a lot of people about that, and quite a few of you guys were horrified to know that I put this in the washing machine, because it's not superwash, it's a rustic yarn, it's easily feltable. If you split splice this thing, which I do, it will felt. That's how you join the ends. And what am I doing putting it in the washing machine? Well, some of you will know, of course, that what makes wool felt is agitation and high temperature. It's primarily agitation. So what you need to do is check if your washing machine has a program with less agitation and a lower temperature. So that's what I do. There are usually 3 candidates for your washing machine program, and I can't speak for top loaders right now because we don't really have those in Europe. I'm sure there are some that have some, but in general top loaders are very unusual here, and I have no experience with them. So I'm mainly going to be talking about the other ones with the front loaders. And yeah, there are 3 candidates there for washing cycles, washing programs, excuse me. One is the hand wash, and then there's the delicates, and then is the wool cycle. Now the wool cycle may seem like the most obvious choice, but I do recommend that if you're going to do that, look through the manual of your washing machine and see what temperature is it, because some machines for some reason make wool cycles for superwash wool, and superwash wool can take slightly higher temperatures. So my wool cycle is at 40 degrees Celsius, and I don't want to go above 30 when I wash my knitwear. So 30 degrees, that's perfect, but when it's at 40, I'm a bit like, let's not. Now, of course, maybe you can change the setting as you're running a cycle. I don't quite trust my washing machine with that. I know it's possible, and it's usually what I do, and I think it works, but since we don't have a hand wash cycle, I then went to delicates, and delicates I find is consistently across machines usually your safest bet. They have no agitation, there's no spinning, rotating, anything with big movements, usually at 0, though I do suggest you check your machine first. And the temperature is usually 30, but again, I put my machine on 30 just to be sure, and also put all the spinning and everything on 0. I know there is some stuff with you can have spinning with washing wool. I'm just not very confident with that, so I'm very happy to have information about that below in the comment section, because some say if you have a lot of spinning, then actually there's no agitation because you're taking the entire sweater around. So that's interesting, and I'm definitely intrigued about that, because when I did take my sweater out, it was soaking wet. And so then I just took it out on my terrace with a towel, and I wrapped it in and I sat on it, and I was soaked and the water did come out, and then I had it dry in the sun. And no blocking, just lay it out. Not the cleanest pavement outside, but there you go, that's what I have. I do not recommend hanging on a dryer because it tends to take out, it weighs it down and make it a bit off shape. But actually when I hold Holst single, you know, not the held double, I may actually put it on a hanger because it's so light, there's nothing actually holding it down, provided I have squeezed out all of the water. So that's just the thing you need to just check with your garment. Is it heavy that it will lose its shape? If I have it drying on a hanger, but generally you should be fine. But generally I just recommend drying it flat. So yeah, as far as what I wash it with, that's another factor. So just to repeat, 30 degrees, no agitation, spinning, movement whatsoever. Delicate's program is perfect. And then I use fabric softener and a wool detergent. Now I'm not fussy about my wool detergent. I don't use Soak or Eucalan. I never owned any of those. I use Woolite from the supermarket. That's the super kind of the wool wash here in the UK. We have Milo in Norway, and there might be a similar something in your country. Doesn't need to be any fancier than that, but I do recommend a wool detergent because they do tend to make your wool stay warmer, make the fiber stay just lasting for longer. Some are saying that makes no difference, but over time the argument is that the fibers will kind of deteriorate with regular wool wash because of some enzymes or some stuff I don't know any stuff about, but it's safer to go with a wool wash. But it's not going to kill your garment doing a regular detergent once or twice. And I like to use fabric softener. I do not recommend fabric softener on superwash. I don't remember the reasoning behind that, but I do use fabric softener or hair conditioner on my regular non-superwash yarn. And I think that's all I have to say about that. So don't worry about washing your knitwear in the washing machine, provided your washing machine has an appropriate program, that you have the right stuff to wash it with. With Whole Super Soft, I wouldn't do it any other way because it's so hard to get the spinning oil out by hand. I have done it, it's just, I get a bit more worried about the agitation that I put in with my hands when I wash it, so I'd rather leave it to the machine and have it just go through with the rinse and the soap and all that stuff. So yeah, I've gone on and on about that for long enough, but you can see how well this turned out. I'm going to give you a close-up of the Colorwork just to give you an idea. All of this stuff looked pretty awful when it was on the needles. I thought it was all too loose and stringy and weird. Behold, as ever, just fluffs up when I wash it, and it looks quite lovely, and it's so light and warm, and I want to live in this sweater. It's the best, and I'm so happy with the color choice. I did sort of steal that idea from Maria of Ninja Chickens and Patricia of Knitography, because they both did that, and I just truly love it and would recommend it. I think Jennifer Steingast designs and writes patterns really well. I would definitely love to make more of hers. I don't blame anyone who just does all of the sweaters of hers. They're really good, and yeah, I've taken a lot of wisdom from this process. And guys, I'm completely into doing stuff a little bit oversized lately. I know it's a bigger job. I know I would have finished this a lot sooner had I not done the full length or width. If I just done it fitted and cropped like I usually do, you know, that would have saved me time. But I just want to live in this when it's this big. It's so much nicer. It's still flattering and all that, although yes, it is baggy in the back because it is so much bigger than me. And as with any yoke, the stitch count for the front and for the back is usually the same. You can change this, of course, by adding the sleeves further back of the yoke when you do it, so you'll have more stitches in the front than the back. That tends to erase the neckline too, so that's a nice trick. But then I would suggest adding short rows to lower the lower back a bit. That was a digression I wasn't going to go to take on now. But another way to work on this, which I like to do when I make more fitted yokes, is at the back here, have two decrease darts right in kind of the middle. Not quite in the middle, obviously, because there are two of them, so you have to have some spacing between them as well. Sometimes I have them be double, so there's a SSK and a knit two together on each one of them. Sometimes I have them singles. One is an SSK, one is a knit two together. And they just kind of make a bit of a sort of seam along the upper back towards the waist. Sometimes I also add it below the waist, so for hip increases, depending on what I want to achieve, and obviously if I even knit it down to the hips, which I don't often do. And yeah, I do recommend doing that. I think I did that on this one. So as you'll see on my Miss Rachel, there are some here. You can see how they go down here. There's one. And we have some under here as well. So here I've actually just taken one of the decreases from here and put it there. So there is still a knit two together and SSK, but they're placed in two different places. Same here. There's one under the arm and there's one on the back. And yeah, I find that makes a very nice shape. It avoids some of the bagginess that some people don't like getting at the back of yokes. I personally don't mind because I don't think yokes are supposed to be always so very fitted, but it depends what you want to achieve with your garment. You do you, as I always say. So some tips and tricks there for someone who's done a lot of garments and made a lot of mistakes and finally has made something that is wonderful. But yeah, more on garments that I'm not featuring in this episode on my Ravelry project. There's always lots of information there that you can check out. Now, there are some works in progress. I haven't worked much on my Impressionist shawl yet. I'm still working on Clue 2 that came out on Saturday. And today is Tuesday, so there just hasn't been that much time. I finished my carpet last night, so that's just how it is with that. But I did cast on a new project as soon as I was done with this sweater because I had promised myself that I was allowed to, because I've been itching to knit this. And it is the Threipmuir by Isolde Teague, and I haven't knitted anything Isolde Teague in years, so this is such a pleasant experience. And I'm feeling the IKEA factor is pretty high. I feel very Swedish with the color scheme. It's very blue and yellow. That's fine, that's fine. Don't mind. I think it's really cool. And the yarn I'm using, you guys, oh, it's so rewarding. It's JC Rennie Super Soft. So this is one skein I haven't cracked open yet. This is the label. It's all the information. So it is truly super soft. Now, JC Rennie were the first ones to come up with the whole super soft idea and the yarn, and it's a Highland wool, though I believe they get their fleece now from New Zealand, and it's lovely. It's still a Scottish mill, and they've been around since like I think the 1700s or something. They've really been in the game for quite some time, and the yarn is truly lovely. And they had a booth at Edinburgh Yarn Festival, and that is where I got this yarn. So, you know, I'm already knitting up the Edinburgh yarn, kind of, mostly. And I really do love this stuff. Like, just, oh, so close up time. It's just perfect. This is such forgiving yarn, and it's soft. It's really soft, just as soft as this, and I can imagine how it's going to look after blocking. I've heard it is really a yarn that takes really well to blocking, and it's already looking really nice, so I can't wait. And yeah, I wish I had finished the yoke by the time I recorded this, because I've zoomed through this bit really fast already, but I have had to knit some other things, and that's fine. I did ponder a bit on some parts of this sweater, because the short row section for the lower back is really quite shallow, and I think it's because it's going to introduce the same lower below the yoke kind of short rows the way this sweater has, and I'm delighted to do that again. I'm really aiming for following this pattern just through and through. I have a really hard time following pattern instructions, and I have already modified a bit because I did decide to do German short row shaping instead of the, I think, oh, it's either Japanese short rows or the wrap and turn. I'm not entirely sure, but I recommended just some method I wasn't going to try. So it's got the German short rows, but aside from that, I'm going to try my best to follow this pattern through and through. So that's why you're not seeing any rib, because the pattern says to pick up the rib last and do the neckline. And I'll be like, okay, why? And I had a bit of a Google and a bit of a look through some forums on Ravelry, and the argument is that it adds structure. So there's that word again, and I'm buying the argument, because if you don't have that structure here with the cast on edge where you not pick up stitches again, which adds quite a lot of strength and structure, your neckline could easily grow, and that is where the weight of this entire piece hangs. You know, there's no shoulder piece or anything, it all hangs from this little circle here, and if that starts widening, then the entire thing can sort of sag and not be quite the same shape that you had when you started making it. So I think that's a really nice idea. It's a little bit extra work, but I'm doing it. I'm gonna listen to this pattern, taking all the Isolde wisdom, and yeah, I am really enjoying it. It's very well written, of course, and clear, and I'm enjoying it is what I'm trying to say. I'm gonna try to follow it throughout. I'm gonna try to stick to the shape and all of that. It will be an oversized sweater again. I really do love the bigger yokes that I'm just gonna snuggle up in when I'm at home, and yeah, I do wear them publicly as well, of course. It's nice to have something big and baggy. I feel a bit less self-conscious with it. I feel like I can have more free movement. It's a bit part of, I think, having grown up and just accepted what I am comfortable with, literally with my just the tactile experience of wearing clothes, but also how to be perceived, that I don't feel like I have to show that I have a waist, you know. It just appeals more to me now that I am just no longer in my early 20s. So yeah, that sweater lives in my raccoon bag, which seems to be my go-to sweater bag as of late, is where all my sweaters get to live when I'm working on them, because the size is perfect, the shape is good. The raccoons, the raccoons. So that about wraps up my work in progress. There's one work in progress this week. But I do have some acquisitions, because I have acquisitions every week, don't I? One is that I got some Chowgu needles and this skein from Pearlessence. I had some issues with the cart of Pearlessence because I wanted 3 different sizes of Chowgu needles. Instead I got 3 of the same sizes because that was how it appeared in the cart. I was hoping they may be able to see what I had added, but they didn't, so I have to return some needles to get some back, and that is absolutely fine. They're being really good in their their customer service is really good, so no complaints, just a bit tedious, but there wasn't an urgent needle panic there, so that's alright. And yeah, this yarn is Jameson Smith 2-ply jumper weight, because I want to do the Couture bra Kate Davis cardigan. I do have some brown and white lace weight yarn that I thought I could hold double if need be, or single if it doesn't matter, and do that cardigan because it's nice and rainbowy and fun and colourful. So that is a plan. I have also received a shipment from La Bien-Aimée, which means I now have a full collection of Laine magazine. So I had one of these before and now I have all 4. I was going into a little bit of a panic because they didn't send the magazine right away. It took some time, and I was like emailing them like, are you still gonna send these? I haven't been sent yet, or do you still have them in stock? And was reassured by Amy that yes, they're being shipped today. And I'm like, okay, cool, fine. That's what happens, you know. The early issues are not in print, they're going low in every stock I have checked, and I am a bit late to the party, so that's kind of where I was in that bit of panic. And now I have all 4, and yeah, I did have some discussions with you guys earlier about to what extent they are Nordic, and I'm like, obviously I know they're not aiming to be traditional. They kind of came out a bit wrong. My main argument is that I can't really see the Nordicness of this being a Scandinavian. I'm just not quite seeing it. I'm seeing something that has a big international appeal, and I think that's great. I'm just not seeing my Nordic culture in there. Of course, Finnish culture may differ a lot more from Norwegian culture than I'm aware of. Nordic knitting is very deeply rooted in the traditional, so that's kind of why I'm like, well, what Nordic knitting are you guys talking about? Because I'm actually finding that when I am in Norway, it's like, it's still finding its modern look to knitting, the knitting that it has that is not necessarily traditional. And I suppose Laine magazine could very well be that contribution of seeing, well, if we're not doing the traditional, what are we in terms of Nordic knitting? And I think that's interesting. But yeah, I do still think like there are a big part of the selling Nordic lifestyle things, be it hygge, lykke, mittens, which is fine. I'm riding on that wave as well. It's Scandinavia and the Nordic countries are trendy. It's odd to have your own culture being trendy all of a sudden, especially if it's kind of been the opposite in the past. But I don't know, I'm excited about it. I think we have stuff to share that is worthwhile, and I'm glad to see where it's gonna take us in terms of style, lifestyle and image. Stuff that I'm not really too fussed with. I just like knitting and I hope it looks good. That's kind of where I'm coming from. But I really do admire the Laine magazine people for what they have done, what they have accomplished. This huge amazing product coming from a Nordic country that is taking the world by storm. It is about time that we get to like add our little fingerprint to the international knitting scene and show what we've got. And yes, so applauding these Finnish bunch of people for having accomplished this. I think it's really, really cool, and I want to see more Nordic and Scandinavian things on the scene, always. Fun fact, you may notice that I'm distinguishing between Nordic and Scandinavian. I don't really care, but technically only Denmark, Norway and Sweden are in Scandinavian. Iceland and Finland are Nordic, and then there's some other fussy details about places and islands and what have you. I don't really care if we're all called Scandinavian, if we're all called Nordic. I thought you might want to know is all. Now, this is all I have for you in this episode, but I am gonna add a little bit of a bonus episode to this episode, because I'm gonna talk about buying yarn in London. It's been a long time coming, and I have done a little bit of a vlog with Amy Florence of the Stranded podcast and Stranded Dyework Yarns, and I hope you will enjoy it. So that's going to be in part 2, an additional video after this one. If you don't care about yarn shopping in London, that's alright, you don't have to watch that. But thank you so much for watching this episode, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!